On Mondays and Thursdays, we have a staff meeting after camp that typically lasts until 6 o'clock. Plan on Mondays and Thursdays being until 6 p.m. Some of them we get out of there around more like 5 or so. But some of them definitely last till 6, so don't make commitments before 6 o'clock. And they, at that meeting, we talk about challenges that we have with certain kids, and successes that we share successes that we had with how to deal with the more challenging kids. We do planning for the week. We discuss all the little surprises and things like that come up with camp, et cetera, et cetera. The other days, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, there is a job wheel that the Gobos do. It rotates each day, and it's just a cleaning up of the camp. Actually, that's on Mondays and Thursdays also, before the staff meeting. And it's things like vacuuming the main rooms and picking up the trash outside and all that kind of stuff. Usually takes, I don't know, 20 minutes maybe. So on Tuesday and Thursday, they're released. Tuesday and Wednesday, they're released as soon as their job wheel job is done. Often people kind of hang around and play guitars or tell war stories or whatever, but they only need to be there until their job wheel job is done, and that's usually 4:10 or something like that. Fridays, it's a half day, and camp ends at noon, and typically the job wheel jobs go really fast on Fridays, and people are usually done by about 12:30 or so. And on Fridays, this part is not mandatory at all, though it's encouraged certainly. On Fridays, for years and years now, it's been our tradition for the whole camp, all the staff and the Gobos to go to Chinatown restaurant across from the high school over there. They do a lunch buffet, and we make an arrangement for the back room, and they actually set up their whole back room for us. And so we have one long table in the back room, and we go there and have lunch together, and share stories from the week, and often give out little awards to the Gobos and stuff like that. Good fun. And usually then much of the staff will go with any interested Gobos to whatever kind of big summer movie is being released that day. So those things aren't mandatory at all. It ends up being a little expensive almost as the two things together. So it's by no means mandatory, but it's definitely fun. So that's the week. And Katie mentioned this before, but I want to stress it's tiring. It's a wonderful sort of tiring. Like, these kids give you so much energy, and they feed you so much energy, and you end up giving so much energy back to them that you're sort of this conduit for energy all day long. And by the end of the day, that just wears you out. It's a really good sort of tired, but you'll definitely be going home tired. And we've had Gobos say to parents before. We've had Gobos ask us to say to parents before to make sure, as Katie said earlier, that you know the degree to which they're working hard all day long, and so support them in that way. They're going to come home just pooped, usually in a very, very good mood, but just worn out.
And just one quick interjection for me as I'm watching Story Talk. We usually recommend that kids don't have another job, like an evening job or a weekend job, during the month that they will be working as a Gobo at camp. It's just too hard. When we've had them have to do that, they've come in too tired and they're not able to do their job as a Gobo, and they're not really able to do their other job either. So that is our recommendation. Thanks.
I want to tell you a little bit more about orientation and pre-orientation. Pre-orientation is that one day in which we teach them direct beforehand. And at that day, we pretty much only stress directing and working with kids. And Gobos, or incoming Gobos, you may have heard joking horror stories from the other Gobos about that day. We do kind of role-playing in which we ask you to direct the scene that you're working on, and we have the returning Gobos act as campers. And sometimes we ask them to be particularly challenging campers. All challenges that we've actually seen at camp, but we ask them to play up the role some of the time, and as a way to get at the issues that the challenges that are sometimes faced. For the most part, though, every rehearsal that you end up with ends up being just a group of kids who are so excited to be there with you, and so excited to, to work with you in any way that they can. And they want their scene to be really good. But now and then there'll be a challenging kid, and so we want to make sure that you're prepared for that. And again, at that pre-orientation, we just focus on directing. And we do that early so that you have a month before the camp actually starts to really be thinking about directing and think about leadership issues and all the things that we'll talk about there, and be able to look at your theater director or look at your teachers and kind of say, oh, wow, I see that choice that they made right there. And almost be able to kind of go, why? I wonder why they chose to say that then. It might have worked better if they, made this type of decision. And just kind of get all these leadership issues churning around in your head. Then orientation itself. At orientation, we cover sort of everything that you can think of that gets us all running as one smooth community and one smooth machine. The 3 days of orientation are about half the time is spent setting up the camp, turning Learning Circle Montessori into a magical Camp Equinox land. And the other half the time is spent on workshops for the Gobos and for the staff. And some of those workshops are getting to know you type workshops and getting to, learning to work together and things like that. But a lot of them are covering things like legal issues, appropriateness issues, child psychology and child behavior challenges, first aid scenarios in which, though you will already be first aid and Red Cross certified, we actually have volunteers come in, and in small groups you rotate through these other actors who will be crying or screaming and bleeding catch up, and you'll be dealing with them, because we found it to be so much different dealing with people who are actually hurt and upset. Though that's not something that happens much at camp, knock on wood. But it's much different dealing with an actual person than dealing with your first aid buddy at the first aid class. So we have people come in and actually pretend to be injured. That's an exciting day. It's great fun. And so in those 3 days, we really focus on making sure that everyone there is very well trained to deal with basically anything that could come up.